Una vez más agradezco a GeneXus la invitación a
I would like to thank GeneXus for this invitation to make a presentation, and I'm going to make some comments about the innovation process seen from a more abstract point of view and also more conceptual. We are going to discuss open innovation now. Which means analyzing the main strategies for innovation and how changes in the 21st century have happened among big corporations and also among institutions and the whole innovation ecosystem. Brum book from 2013 reviews the way of envisaging innovation. At that time, not much was said about innovation. They were talking about research and development, but very big changes came about, and somehow research and development were molded on the basis of the strategies and the experiences of the chemical industry at the end of the 19th century, and then the pharmaceutical industry in the 20th century. And the cycle was more or less like this. The main strategy was to invest in capturing, recruiting, and keeping the best human resources, also having large research and development departments, hiring the best people, and keeping them in the company. With a large research and development division in the company, the results of these laboratories had the strategy of producing as much intellectual property as possible. And then it was necessary to protect the intellectual property, which was one of their main strategies. So we will see that these big research and development laboratories are surrounded by a network of lawyers that protect them so that they can benefit as much as possible from the patent system. And then the strategy was to reach the market as fast as possible with a new product. If this product is well protected, then we will have a market share for 20 years or so that will allow us to have significant benefits and relaunch the cycle, because then again we can, as a laboratory, hire the best people and give them a good research environment, keep them in the company, and repeat once again the cycle. One of the most important examples was Bell Labs. We have all worked with products that went through this laboratory at some point because it was the largest research and development laboratory of the 20th century. Carnegie developed a language in this laboratory. They got several Nobel Prizes. UNIT and the transistor and Shannon were part of this laboratory's work. That is to say, the history of the lab is the history of electronics and IT. However, this strategy is no longer the main strategy of large corporations. It has given way to a strategy of open innovation, and something happened in between. Bell Lab was the investigation branch of AT&T, and at some point it was the largest telephone company of the world. Then it changed its name to Lucent. It was bought by Alcatel, a French company, and now it belongs to Nokia. And they built big telecommunication equipment within Nokia's general strategy, but they're not leaders anymore because the leader company is Cisco. So things changed in this field, and the big research and development centers of the big companies are no longer the only way of doing things. This doesn't mean that they don't exist any longer and that they are not functional and profitable, but they're no longer the only way of doing things. Changes are related to three aspects. Firstly, human resources. Human capital. What happened with the strategy of hiring the best people and retaining them in the company? Well, it is difficult to hire them, but it's not possible to keep them in the company, because many significant cultural changes have happened, and the borders of the companies have been permeated by acquisitions. Cisco, the leader in telecommunications, which was the most valuable company in the world at some point around the dot-com bubble in 1999 and 2000, between 1995 and 2015, bought 195 companies. They don't have an R&D potent lab. They have a group that knows how to make acquisitions and do good scouting and screening of what's in the market. Startups, for example, that are doing interesting things, and they have an enormous integration capacity. Bell Labs and Cisco's capabilities are very different, and the global strategies of both companies are also very different. And this is seen in the company's strategies and how they have done. So firstly, human capital. Secondly, knowledge and knowledge management. Innovation may have very quick cycles, and in that case, patents are not the more adequate mechanism for protection. If we are in the pharmaceutical world, where the innovation cycle is relatively slow, development cycles sometimes are measured in tens of years. They have to be taken to market with clinical validations, and this may take more than 10 years. And a patent that lasts for 20 years gives good protection. But if we are talking about IT cycles, patents protection is not enough. They do exist, but they're not sufficient. For example, Forbes a few years ago said, who's going to stop Nokia? Because Nokia had celebrated the sale of its 1 billionth cell phone sale. But now it's become history. At one point, it was the leader, and that was 10 years ago. Last month, they celebrated the 10th year of the smartphones, but also it was the 10th year of this publication in Forbes. So we see that knowledge protected in this manner, useful knowledge, does not last as long in the world of ITs. And since ITs are invading everything, almost everything is being affected by these shorter cycles. The third fundamental change is related to knowledge and a strategy to be the first or the better, because being the first one is not enough. It does not guarantee an advantage that lasts in time. The important thing is to be the first one and the best one, and to be future-proof. And this is more complicated than having been the first in this race. So what led to all these changes? It is clear that the changes have happened in these three segments. The cycle of closed research does not exist anymore. The walls of the organizations are permeated. People come and go. We buy and sell knowledge. We are integrated with other companies, but there are four drivers of change, four main drivers. The first one, there's more knowledge than ever before in history. There are more people now working in knowledge than in all the history of humanity before this moment. There are more engineers in the world also than in the past, in all the previous years, in every generation. There are more people working in the world of knowledge right now than ever before, and that is why we are creating knowledge that is cumulative, and we have gigantic shoulders on which we can climb, and that is why we are creating this enormous abundance of knowledge that can be applied. Also, there has been a dramatic increase in the number of people who work in knowledge that have changed our culture. And now we believe in mobility. We think that it is good to work one time in one company for a certain time and then change to another company and maybe switch countries, switch regions. We are taking with us the know-how that we have acquired, what we learn in our company, which may be know-how or may be strictly IT, is taken to another company without any difficulty and any kind of problem.
So the increase of mobility of knowledge workers is fundamental. And the last factor is that there is risk capital available. Maybe it sounds a little bit strange to some of you who had ideas and looked for funding, and it was not easy. But in fact, there's much more capital than ideas today. There's capital available. Lots of capitals are looking for right ideas to invest. Traditional investments have very low yields. So this is a point in time where if you have interesting ideas and good business models, it's easy to get funds. So there is like a booming of startups. There's a particular boom in terms of ITs, and not just ITs, new ideas, new undertakings that are interrelated. So this model of open innovation, which is the paradigm, the main paradigm today, becomes very important. There's one company that gave us the clue. Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble is a monster company. Many people do not know Procter & Gamble, but if I give you the names of products, Gillette, Duracell, and 50 different brands they have worldwide. They sell about $80 billion a year. So that's their size. That's the world of consumption. One is Procter & Gamble, the other is Unilever. They're both enormous. Procter & Gamble a few years ago changed the strategy. Instead of having a R&D area, they talked about connect and development. Connect and develop. And they publish their problems. They publish their lines of action. They publish the topics that interest them. They challenge the community, the global community. They challenge other companies that do something close to their world so that they get solutions. They invite people to post their ideas, their answers to the main problems that they suggest as challenges. With that Procter & Gamble model, the business model changes and they become pioneers in working this way. So we leave a business model where it was prohibited to conceive ideas that could not be developed. We've seen that many companies have the not invented fear. And we see that in many institutions that sometimes are reluctant to adopt informatics solutions developed outside the company. And that syndrome, not invented fear, was really fought against. And we created a new culture, buying innovation. That's the main strategy of many of the large companies. Today, over 50% of Procter & Gamble's innovation is due not to their lab, but to this initiative of connect and develop. What is the other part of this? There are companies which want to sell innovation, like IBM with Watson. They proposed development that took many years, which was not even considered feasible in the 20th century. Such initiatives then would be protected by patents that were not going to be available to just anybody, or to just anybody who wanted to incorporate these ideas into their business models. In the chief book that I mentioned, that's an old book, but it talks about buying and selling intellectual property, buying and selling research and development. And this has matured. We are not in 23, we are in 2017. And we talk about managing the flow of knowledge. Knowledge is a flow permeating the walls of an organization inside out. It can go out and then come back enriched, or be part of a business model carried out by somebody else. That is the strategy that we have inside our organization. We have to be clear inside the organization so that we can network with an ecosystem that becomes richer every day and provides many potentials. So we need to manage the flow of knowledge. That's the main game. In addition, there are 5 scopes in this. One is platforms. I'm not going to tell GeneXus what a platform is, because that's the business GeneXus is devoted to provide platforms so that others can install their business models and solve technological aspects. That's a strategy to provide services in open innovation. Second is the early participation of users. The users will be participating in an active way, sharing their needs, sharing their ideas, and practically all development companies that work for end users are really using this type of strategies. And then there are other tools, challenges, competition of ideas, innovation networks, and I'm going to share what we do here in Uruguay in terms of promoting companies, and not just companies, also institutions, so that they participate in this type of strategies. The ANII is the National Innovation and Research Agency. In our agency, we are building a set of instruments or tools that could be called second-generation tools. They are more sophisticated than the classical instruments used by the promotion of research and development. Classical instruments have to do with funding projects. Early this morning with Nicolas, we talked about an association to work certain verticals, and that's a sophisticated tool. This is what we are doing with Thales Lab and other investment funds. But in short, in open innovation, we are talking about 3 issues. First, idea competitions. This is a facility that the agency grants to all organizations in the system so that we organize competitions, internal competitions. And GeneXus was one of the first companies to join us in this endeavor. We organize the competitions, we organize the judges, we call for these ideas. This is a very good tool, not just to collect ideas inside an organization. We do it also with the insurance bank. During those idea competitions, we capture ideas inside an organization, and then the managers commit themselves to implement the ideas that receive prizes. There is a true commitment. It's not just giving an award. They want ideas to develop, to exist. And this is a first step to later on develop strategies that are more agile in terms of innovation. We have 2 or 3 elements inside the organization, and everybody knows how to really help this idea take off. Just to give you 2 examples. We have GeneXus, one of the first companies participating, and the Central Bank of Uruguay, a large institution that also organized internal idea competitions managed by my agency. A second example is innovation networks. Innovation networks are like clubs where you have researchers, companies determine the agenda, and the research teams learn about the demand. In Latin America, we face issues in terms of having the production sector converse with the academy. That's getting together and talking to each other is a problem that both parties face. Technological networks, innovation networks are those spaces that bring together the two sectors. One is in the plastic industry, in the software industry, in water treatment areas. There are 5 technological centers in operation, and 2 more will become operative in 2018. So this is another tool available to the society to really carry out innovation networks and bring together research capacities from different sectors. Sometimes we have companies, research centers, sometimes funded by the agency, sometimes not. The rules are not very strict. The idea is to provide a real meeting point and not just something that doesn't work. The third tool is challenges. This is the tool we prefer. The challenges tool is a company or institution that brings a challenge, brings a problem, like Procter & Gamble, and we try to get inspiration, or we try to copy in the best possible way the initiative of Connect and Development presented by Procter & Gamble. And ANII positions itself as a platform so that any company, any institution can operate like Procter & Gamble. So if we receive a problem or a challenge, we formulate it in such a way that is clear. We distributed it to the community of researchers, a community of entrepreneurs, established companies, and the companies raise a solution, present profiles. These profiles are chosen. I mean, you just present 2 pages with one idea and a gross approach in terms of how much it would cost to do so. Then a project is presented. A project is a proposal with a schedule, with human forces, human capital, clear goals, and so on. And then we select the most interesting project. Examples. I will give you 2 examples. The first one, and not just by chance, the first company that came to this instrument was Unilever. Somehow, they are carrying out a very similar strategy to that of Procter & Gamble. Unilever presented a challenge for organic waste in plastic containers that completed a life cycle in the supermarkets. We created profiles. We found a solution by a group from the Catholic University with one company or one sector of the municipal government that deals with the discharge of end waste. Last Friday, a challenge was completed to change systems that are used to sell bus fare tickets. And we'll have a prototype by the end of this year or beginning of next year. There are 12 proposals. We started with 24 profiles, but 12 are running profiles. Challenges, then, is a twofold issue. It's like dancing tango. It takes 2 to tango. We need a company to present the challenge, and we need a second company providing a solution. It's not enough with simply having a challenge. Those who have a challenge need to organize that challenge, and we can help them. And then another company presenting the solution that needs to pay attention to the challenges. And this twofold strategy, these are my problems and these could be the solutions, they go together. It's very important and it's a key issue. On our side, as ANII, in these partnerships between those facing a problem and those presenting a solution, if the solution is useful for the community, if it can be replicated, we grant a subsidy. But that's not the relevant issue. The relevant issue is bringing together two to tango, to have this phenomenon of innovation. The agency just provides the music. Thank you.